the 186-year-old. Martin isn't a ghost, and he's not immortal. He's a living relic from the 1864 stratum. His tattoo, a fouled anchor without a globe, places him exactly between 1840 and 1868. He doesn't know what a semi-automatic weapon is because his consciousness is locked in a deeper layer of time. When Boyd entered that dungeon, he didn't just walk downstairs. He pierced through a temporal seam. Today, we decode why Martin's fouled anchor is the perfect metaphor for a town that keeps you in place, but stabilizes nothing. When you think about history as a straight line, the town might seem puzzling. However, if you picture history as a stack of transparent slides, everything starts to make sense. We've been fixated on the year 1506 as the starting point, but that's simply the foundation.
The silent, ancient roots.
The true engine of change is 1864, the year when the system discovered its perfect language, the American Civil War. This wasn't merely a battle over territory, it was a defining moment when one nation was caught in two conflicting realities. It was the height of brother against brother, serving as the ultimate model for a system that thrives on the friction of human division. It wasn't the beginning of the war, when people still believed it would be brief, nor was it the end, when weariness began to resemble peace. It was the middle, the point at which the country had already torn itself apart, and no one could recall what it felt like to be whole. That's the year the system seems to favor, not just as a date, but as a state of being. Fromville operates like something intentionally crafted to prevent a wound from healing. The lurking dangers may come out at night, but they aren't the root cause. The true engine is division. The town splinters as soon as the pressure mounts. People start to align themselves into factions. Leaders rise. Ideologies solidify. Trust becomes a valuable commodity. Identity in question. Are we one nation or two? Are we about structure or autonomy, progress or preservation? That tension serves as the blueprint for understanding. Let's take a closer look at Martin. His existence in the dungeon is a puzzling phenomenon that challenges our understanding of biology, unless we consider the concept of stratified time. He has a fouled anchor tattoo, notably missing the globe, a detail that ties him to the US Marine Corps during the period of 1840 to 1868. Interestingly, he's unfamiliar with what a semi-automatic handgun is. If we were to take biology at face value, he'd have to be over 186 years old to encounter Boyd, which is quite ludicrous. Yet, Martin isn't a man who has lived for 2 centuries. He's more like an artifact from a deeper layer of time that hasn't quite settled. In Fromville, the y-axis isn't just about height, it represents time. When Boyd ventured into that dungeon, he didn't merely enter a room, he pierced through to the 1864 stratum. Martin stands as a living relic from that specific moment, a soldier from a war that seems to persist in the town's collective memory. He's been there for what feels like 10 or 20 years, anchored in a layer where the Civil War remains the prevailing operating system. Martin provides the first tangible evidence that this isn't mere metaphor. His tattoo isn't just a nostalgic decoration. The eagle and fouled anchor without the globe situate him within a narrow time frame, specifically before 1868. Tattoos back then weren't mere fashion, but they represented identity, allegiance, and proof of belonging. If he served, it would have been during a time when the nation was fracturing. A man who had lived past the turn of the 20th century would at least grasp the concept of automatic weapons, but he doesn't. His consciousness is firmly rooted in the 1800s, and that detail is too significant to overlook. Taken literally, he'd be nearly 2 centuries old, which biology would scoff at. Yet, time itself may not. Stratified time provides a clearer explanation. It suggests layers of history compressed and stacked, active beneath one another like geological strata, not linear. The dungeon isn't just underground, it's a seam where these layers converge. When Boyd steps through the faraway tree, he's not merely traveling across space, he's entering a deeper stratum. Martin isn't a 186-year-old man, he's a man from 1864's, suspended at a junction between layers. For him, 10 years might equate to a century for others. When he passes away, the dungeon will collapse and the seam will close. This isn't chaotic fantasy, it's a structural reality. The fouled anchor etched on his skin is almost tragically poetic. An anchor typically symbolizes stability, but being fouled means it's tangled in its own chain, a hope that can't move, stability that turns into a prison. Martin is literally chained to a wall, an anchor unable to lift. Fromville itself behaves like a fouled anchor. It keeps people in place, yet stabilizes nothing. The system isn't just observing the residents. Take a look at the divide between town and colony house. It perfectly reflects the Union and the Confederacy. The town, led by Boyd, embodies the Union as centralized authority, federal-style regulations, and a strong emphasis on structure and technological advancement. Conversely, Colony House represents the Confederate valuing local autonomy, communal living, and prioritizing a way of life over strict laws. Their focus is on the internal experience, embracing joy, forming connections, and accepting reality as it stands. When the town residents view Colony House, they see a reckless disregard for discipline. In contrast, Colony House perceives the town as a cold, oppressive regime. The conflict within the town mirrors the larger one from which Martin likely hails. Jade and Boyd aren't merely in disagreement, they represent opposing cognitive archetypes. Jade seeks integration. He believes in a system that can be decoded. He helped construct towers and chases symbols, aiming to unify disparate elements into a single narrative. This reflects the Union impulse, preserving the whole, imposing coherence, and believing in progress through structure. Boyd, on the other hand, is focused on protection. He values order and prioritizes survival over revelation, leadership over abstraction. He believes in duty and containment, which aligns more with the Confederate impulse, not in moral terms, but in psychological orientation. He champions local authority, tradition, and the preservation of what is immediately tangible. In their visions, they see opposing soldiers, not random figures, but the very sides of the same conflict, serving as a reminder that this division has been played out before. Town and Colony House embody a fascinating architectural split. Town represents centralized authority, rules, enforcement, and even a sheriff. In contrast, colony house champions distributed power, prioritizing culture over law and community over command. Each side quietly assesses the other one perceives recklessness, while the other sees rigidity. This tension isn't by chance, it's a carefully crafted dynamic instability. There's just enough collaboration to stave off collapse, yet enough division to avoid resolution. Every time unity starts to take shape, whether it's building the radio tower, sharing research, or aligning strategies, the environment shifts. Storms brew, food spoils, and structures crumble. The system seems to thrive on unresolved fractures. The moment when collective trauma reached a critical mass, the Civil War unleashed unprecedented death and grief, rupturing identities and saturating culture. The clustering of significant events around periods of national stress indicates that the engine activates at peaks of social strain. While 1864 is a key moment, it's not the only one, it's simply one of the most potent. Martin emerges as a relic from this layer, not a ghost or immortal, but an artifact. When he transfers his blood to Boyd, it feels more like an induction than an infection, a passing of the anchor. Boyd becomes linked to the seam between layers. Once Martin passes away, the tremors cease, and the junction stabilizes with a new stabilizer in place. This shifts our perspective on the monsters. They aren't the core of the machine, but rather a pressure point. The real challenge lies in whether opposing mindsets can coexist without obliterating one another. Union and Confederate identities, devoid of politics, transform into psychological poles, integration versus preservation, change versus continuity, external control versus internal adaptation. Each person embodies both sides, and when one dominates entirely, imbalance ensues, leading to obsession on one end and stagnation on the other. A divided community facing external threats, rife with internal distrust and continuous attrition, with no clear end in sight. The pressing question isn't about escape, but whether the cycle can be broken. The system thrives when one side attempts to dominate, relying on polarization to survive. It resets when unity stabilizes for too long. This dynamic explains why Jade perceives Union soldiers while Boyd sees Confederates. They're not merely encountering ghosts, they're witnessing reflections of themselves within the 1864 framework. Jade embodies the ultimate Union mindset, rational, analytical, and fixated on dismantling the system through logic. Boyd represents the Confederate heart, anchored by a traditional sense of duty and a desire to protect his local community at all costs. That year epitomizes the peak of human fracture, marking the shift from we to us versus them. Each time the residents of Fromville edge toward coherence. When town and colony house genuinely begin to act as one, as they did at the end of Season 1, the system triggers a storm. The town evolved into a sophisticated machine for processing national trauma. It archives moments when civilization teeters on the brink. Martin serves as a cautionary tale of what occurs when one becomes ensnared in the anchor, a man trapped by his own history, unable to move or find closure. Fromville stands as a geological fault line of time. It's a compilation of every instance we failed to remain united. Until the residents can bridge the divide between the union of logic and the Confederate of attachment, they remain just another layer of sediment, poised to be buried by whatever tragedy may arise next. 1864 then is not history. It is a warning encoded as a layer. We failed once, the layer implies. The fracture consumed us. Fromville keeps replaying that moment, compressing it, testing it, waiting to see if this time the war ends differently,